The room smelled like medicine and old flowers. Sat on the edge of his hospital bed and listened to the footsteps coming down the hallway. 3 people. 2 walked with the heavy boots of military officers. The third had softer steps, probably a diplomat or politician. He had learned to count footsteps in the darkness. It had been 2 years since the explosion took his eyes, and in that time, he had become very good at listening. The door opened. "Sergeant," a woman's voice said. She spoke with the careful tone of someone who practiced her words before speaking them. "I am Ambassador from the United Earth Council. May we speak with you?" Turned his face toward the sound of her voice. He could not see her, but he knew she was watching him carefully. People always watched him carefully now, like he might break. "I cannot stop you," he said. There was a moment of silence. He heard the 2 officers shift uncomfortably. The ambassador walked closer and sat in the chair beside his bed. "I will be direct with you," she said. "Earth needs your help." Almost laughed. He was a blind man in a hospital. He had not held a weapon in 2 years. His military career was over. What could Earth possibly need from him? "The war with the Empire ended 6 months ago," Ambassador continued. "As you know, we lost. The treaty they offered was harsh, but it allowed humanity to survive. However, they have made one additional demand." "What demand?" asked. "A marriage," she said, "between a human and a member of their royal family." Was quiet for a long moment. Political marriages between species were not unheard of. After wars, they were sometimes used to create bonds between former enemies. But something in the ambassador's voice told him there was more to this story. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked. Ambassador took a breath. "They have specifically requested you, Sergeant." The words did not make sense. Had never met any. He had fought against their soldiers, yes, but only in small battles. He was not famous. He was not important. He was just a blind soldier who had lost his eyes to a weapon. "That is impossible," he said. "They do not know me." "They know of you," the ambassador said. "During the Battle of New Seoul, you saved 17 soldiers after losing your sight. You carried them to safety one by one, navigating through enemy fire using only sound. They recorded the battle. They have studied it many times." Remembered that day. The explosion had come without warning. One moment he could see, and the next moment there was only pain and darkness. But he had heard his fellow soldiers crying for help, and he could not leave them behind. So he had crawled through the smoke and fire, finding them by their voices, pulling them to safety. He had not thought of it as brave. He had simply done what needed to be done. "They believe you represent something interesting about humanity," Ambassador said. "They want to study you, and they want you to marry their princess." "Their princess," repeated slowly. "Princess," the ambassador said. "She is the youngest daughter of Emperor. The marriage would create a permanent bond between Earth and the Empire. It would guarantee peace for generations." Sat in silence. He thought about his life before the war. He had been a simple man from a small village. He had joined the military because he wanted to protect his family. Now his family was gone, killed in the early attacks, and he was alone in the darkness. "Why would a princess marry a blind human?" he asked. "They think we are primitive, they call us animals." Ambassador was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. "I do not know their full reasons," she admitted. "But they do not see blindness the same way we do. Their culture values other senses. To them, your blindness might not be the weakness you think it is." Was not sure he believed her, but he was also not sure he cared. His life had become small and empty. He had no family, no future, no purpose. If marrying an alien princess could help Earth, then perhaps it was the last useful thing he could do. "What happens if I refuse?" he asked. "They have made it clear that this marriage is part of the peace treaty," Ambassador said. "If you refuse, they may see it as an insult. The peace could fail. The war could begin again." So there was no real choice. Understood that now. He was not being asked, he was being told. "When do I leave?" he said. Ambassador let out a breath and heard relief in the sound. She had been afraid he would say no. "The ship will arrive in 3 days," she said. "You will travel to there. The wedding will take place 1 week after your arrival." 3 days, 1 week. His entire life would change in less than 2 weeks. "Will anyone come with me?" asked. "You will have a small team of human advisors," the ambassador said. "But once you are married, you will live among them. You will be expected to follow their customs and traditions." Nodded slowly. He had expected as much. He would be alone in a world he could not see, surrounded by aliens who thought humans were barely intelligent. It sounded like a nightmare. But he had lived through nightmares before. The next 3 days passed quickly. Doctors examined him and gave him medicine to help him adjust to the different atmosphere of. Advisors taught him basic language and customs. He learned that there were a tall species with blue-gray skin and large eyes that could see many colors humans could not. Their bodies produced a natural glow called bioluminescence, which they used to communicate emotions and status. He also learned that Princess had never been seen in public without heavy clothing that covered her entire body. Some people said she was extremely beautiful and did not want to cause jealousy. Others said she was hiding something. No one knew for certain. On the 3rd day, the ship arrived. It was massive, according to the advisors who described it too. It hung in the sky above the city like a dark cloud, blocking out the sun. Walked onto the ship with his head held high. He carried only a small bag with a few personal items. He did not need much anymore. The inside of the ship was cold and smelled strange, like metal and something sweet he could not identify. Crew members walked past him and he heard their whispered words. They were speaking about him, calling him the blind animal and the human pet. He pretended not to understand. His advisors had warned him that they would test him. They would try to make him angry or afraid. If he reacted, they would see him as weak. So he kept his face calm and his hands steady. He had faced worse than whispered insults. An officer met him at the entrance to his quarters. The officer's voice was deep and cold. "Human," the officer said, "I am commander. I am responsible for bringing you safely to. You will stay in these rooms until we arrive. Do not wander the ship. Do not speak to the crew. Do you understand?" "I understand," said. The officer made a sound that might have been a laugh. The princess must be truly desperate to accept such a creature as a husband. Did not respond. He simply walked into his quarters and closed the door. The journey took 5 days. Spent most of the time in his room, listening to the sounds of the ship. He could hear the engines humming through the walls. He could hear crew members walking past his door, sometimes stopping to whisper about him. He thought about the princess waiting for him. What kind of person agreed to marry a stranger from another species? Was she kind or cruel? Was she as unhappy about this marriage as he was? He had no answers. He could only wait and see. On the 5th day, the ship landed on, felt the change in gravity as he stepped off the ship. The air was thicker here, and it smelled like flowers and electricity. An advisor guided him down a long ramp. Could hear a crowd gathered nearby. Thousands had come to see the human who would marry their princess. The whisper started immediately. "So small. Look at his eyes, they do not glow. He cannot even see. How pathetic. The princess deserves better than this animal." Kept walking. He had known this would happen. He had prepared himself for it. But hearing the hatred in their voices still made his heart beat faster. A new voice cut through the crowd. It was sharp and commanding. "Enough." The whispers stopped immediately. Heard heavy footsteps approaching. Someone very important was coming toward him. "I am High Advisor," the voice said. "I speak for Emperor, you are the human." "I am," said. He heard walk around him slowly, examining him like an animal at a market. "Smaller than I expected," said, And blind, truly blind, I thought perhaps the reports were exaggerated. The High Advisor made a dismissive sound. No matter. The princess has accepted this arrangement. The wedding will proceed as planned. I am honored, said, keeping his voice neutral. You should be, said. No human has ever been given such a privilege. Try not to embarrass your species too badly. Said nothing. He simply stood and waited. He would show them what a human could do, not through anger or violence, but through patience and strength. He had walked through fire to save his comrades. He could walk through this too. Whatever waited for him on this world, he would face it with open hands and a steady heart. He was blind, but he was not broken. And soon they would learn the difference. The palace was enormous, could tell by the way sounds echoed off the walls and ceiling. Every footstep seemed to travel for miles before fading away. The floors were smooth like glass, and the air smelled like exotic flowers he could not name. High Advisor led him through countless hallways. Others walked past them and heard their whispers. Some were curious, most were mocking, a few sounded angry. The human quarters are in the East Wing, said. His voice echoed in the vast space. You will stay there until the wedding. Servants will bring you food and water. You are not permitted to leave your rooms without escort. I understand, said. I doubt that, replied coldly. You understand nothing about our world. You are here only because the princess requested it. If it were my decision, your species would still be fighting for survival. Did not respond to the insult. He had learned that silence was often more powerful than words. Let them think he was simple. Let them underestimate him. It did not matter what they thought. They walked for several more minutes before stopping, heard a large door slide open. These are your rooms, said. The princess will meet you tomorrow for the formal introduction ceremony. I suggest you rest. You will need your strength. The High Advisor left without another word. The door closed behind him and was alone. He stood in the darkness of his blindness and listened. The room was large and quiet. He could hear a soft humming from somewhere above, probably a climate control system. There was a faint smell of clean fabric, which meant there was a bed nearby. Slowly, carefully, he began to explore his new home. He walked with his hands extended, feeling the walls and furniture. The room was decorated with smooth surfaces and soft fabrics. There was a large bed against one wall, a table with chairs near the center, and what felt like a bathing area in the corner. Everything was designed for bodies. The bed was too long. The chairs were too tall, but had slept in worse places. He had slept in mud and blood on battlefields. A too-long bed was a luxury. He sat on the edge of the bed and thought about the day ahead. Tomorrow he would meet Princess. Tomorrow he would stand before the court and pretend to be happy about this marriage. What would she think of him? Would she be disgusted by his blindness? Would she hate him for being human? He did not know. All he could do was face whatever came with dignity. That night he dreamed of fire and screaming. He dreamed of the explosion that took his eyes. He dreamed of crawling through smoke, searching for voices in the darkness. He woke up covered in sweat, his heart racing. It took him a moment to remember where he was. Not a battlefield, not a hospital, an alien palace millions of miles from Earth. He lay in the darkness and waited for his heart to slow. Morning came with a knock on his door. A servant entered and spoke in broken human language. Human, you must prepare. The ceremony begins soon. Stood and allowed the servants to dress him in formal clothing. The fabric was strange, lighter than anything he had worn before. It flowed around his body like water. You look acceptable, the servant said. There was surprise in the voice. For a human. Almost smiled, almost. 2 guards came to escort him to the ceremony hall. They walked on either side of him, close enough that he could feel the heat from their bodies. Ran warmer than humans, he noticed. The ceremony hall was the largest room had ever been in. The echoes told him it could hold thousands of people, and from the sound of breathing and whispered conversations, it seemed like thousands of people were there. "The human has arrived," someone announced. The room fell silent. Walked forward, guided by a guard's hand on his shoulder. He could feel every eye in the room watching him. The weight of their stares was almost physical. He stopped when the guard released him. He was standing in the center of the room now, surrounded by aliens who despised his species. "Kneel," a deep voice commanded. It was Emperor, recognized the authority in that voice. This was a man used to being obeyed. Knelt, the floor was cold against his knees. "You are the human called," the Emperor said. "You have come to marry my daughter, Princess. Do you understand the honor you have been given?" "I understand, Your Majesty," said. His voice was steady. "I doubt that," the Emperor said. The words were the same as spoken with the same contempt. "My daughter chose you from thousands of possible candidates. I do not understand her reasons, but I have agreed to respect her choice." Heard movement from the side of the room. Soft footsteps. Someone was approaching. "My daughter," the Emperor said. "Princess." The footsteps stopped a few feet away from. He could smell something sweet and gentle like flowers after rain. He could hear soft breathing, but he could not hear any words. "You may speak to your future husband," the Emperor said. There was impatience in his voice. Silence. Waited. The princess did not speak. The room grew tense. He could hear whispers starting in the crowd. The Emperor said, his voice was harder now, a warning. "Still nothing." Understood then. The princess did not want to speak. Whether from fear or defiance, she was choosing silence, and that silence was making her father angry. Without thinking, spoke. "Your Majesty," he said, keeping his head bowed. "On Earth there is a custom. When two people meet for the first time before marriage, they do not need to speak. Words can come later. First, they simply share the same space and breathe the same air. It is considered respectful." The lie came easily. There was no such custom on Earth, but the Emperor did not know that. There was a long pause. Then the Emperor made a sound that might have been amusement. "Interesting," he said. "Very well, we will respect your primitive customs. The formal introduction is complete. The wedding will take place in 5 days." The ceremony ended. Guards led back to his quarters, but as he walked, he heard soft footsteps following at a distance. The princess was watching him. Over the next few days, learned more about life in the palace. Servants brought him food and water. Advisors came to teach him about wedding customs. He was measured for formal clothing. He was taught words to say during the ceremony. But through all of this, he noticed something strange. Whenever he left his room, he heard those soft footsteps following him. The princess was always nearby, watching but never speaking, never approaching. He wondered what she was thinking. Was she studying him, testing him, or was she simply curious about the strange human who would become her husband? On the 3rd day, he decided to find out. He was walking through a garden area, escorted by guards. The garden was filled with plants that made strange sounds in the wind. The air smelled alive and growing. Stopped suddenly. "I would like to rest here for a moment," he said to the guards. The guards agreed. They moved a short distance away, giving him space, sat on a stone bench and waited. He could hear her. Those soft footsteps had stopped behind a wall of plants nearby. She was hiding, watching him through the leaves. "I know you are there," said quietly. "You have been following me since the ceremony." Silence. The footsteps did not move. "I cannot see you," continued, "but I can hear very well. My ears became my eyes after I lost them in the war." Still nothing. "You do not have to speak," said. "I understand if you are afraid or angry about this marriage. I did not choose it either, but I want you to know that I will not hurt you. I am not your enemy." For a long moment, there was only the sound of wind through the plants. Then, very softly, he heard footsteps moving closer. The princess stepped out from behind the plants and stood a few feet away from him. Could smell her perfume now, that sweet flower scent. He could hear her breathing, slightly faster than normal. She was nervous. "Why did you lie?" she asked. Her voice surprised him. It was gentle and quiet like a stream over stones. There was no hatred in it, no contempt, just curiosity. "Lie about what?" asked. "The Earth custom," she said. "There is no such tradition. I have studied your culture. You made it up to save me from my father's anger." Smiled slightly. She was clever. "Yes," he admitted. "I lied. Your father was becoming impatient. I thought it would help." "Why would you help me?" she asked. My people killed millions of your kind. My people took your eyes." Thought about the question. Why had he helped her? She was a stranger, an alien, a princess from an empire that had nearly destroyed humanity. "I heard your silence," he said finally. "It sounded like someone who needed help. On the battlefield, I learned to respond to that sound. I could not ignore it." The princess was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was even softer. "You are strange," she said, "not like what I expected." "What did you expect?" asked. "Anger," she said. "Hatred. You lost your sight because of us. You were forced into this marriage. You should despise me." "Hatred is heavy," said. "I carried it for a while after the war. It made everything harder, so I put it down." The princess made a small sound. He could not tell if it was surprise or something else. "My father thinks humans are simple creatures," she said, "primitive, driven by basic emotions, but you are not simple at all." "Neither are you," said. "You hide behind silence and watching. You study before you act. That is not simple." Footsteps approached. The guards were coming back. "I must go," the princess whispered, "but I will speak with you again, after the wedding." She walked away before he could respond. Her footsteps faded into the garden. Sat on the bench and thought about what had just happened. The princess had spoken to him. She had asked questions and listened to his answers. She had not treated him like an animal. Perhaps this marriage would not be as terrible as he had feared. Perhaps there was hope. But he also sensed that she was hiding something. There was pain in her voice, carefully buried beneath her gentle words. She was afraid of something, and it was not him. The wedding was 2 days away. Soon he would learn the truth about Princess. And he suspected that truth would change everything. The wedding day arrived like a storm. Servants woke before sunrise. They bathed him in water that smelled like herbs and dressed him in layers of flowing fabric. They painted symbols on his hands with something cold and wet. They hung jewelry around his neck that felt heavy against his chest. "The human looks almost acceptable," one servant said to another, "if you ignore his dead eyes." Ignored the comment. He had grown used to their casual cruelty. It no longer touched him. More servants came to prepare the room. He could hear them moving furniture and laying down fabrics. The air filled with the scent of burning incense, sweet and thick. "The ceremony begins in 1 hour," a guard announced. "You will wait here until you are called." Waited. He thought about his parents, dead now for 3 years. They had been simple farmers who never traveled far from their village. What would they think if they could see him now? Their son, dressed in alien clothing, about to marry a princess from the stars. They would probably laugh. Then they would tell him to be kind to his wife, no matter who she was. He missed them. The hour passed slowly. Finally, the door opened and guards entered. "It is time," one said. They led him through the palace. The hallways were different today, filled with sounds and movement. Thousands had gathered for the wedding. He could hear their voices rising and falling like waves. The ceremony hall was even more crowded than before. Felt the heat of countless bodies pressing around him. The air was thick with perfume and the glow of bioluminescence. He could not see their glow, but he could somehow sense it. There was a warmth in the room that went beyond temperature. There were radiating light like living stars, and even in his darkness, felt it against his skin. "The human groom," someone announced. The crowd made sounds of interest and disgust. Walked forward. The path was lined with people on both sides. He kept his head high and his steps steady. He would not give them the satisfaction of seeing him stumble. He reached the front of the hall and stopped. Emperor was somewhere above him, probably on a raised platform. Could feel the weight of the Emperor's gaze. "Today we witness an unusual union," the Emperor said. His voice filled the entire hall. "My daughter, Princess, has chosen to marry this human. Though I do not understand her reasons, I have honored her request. Let it be known that this marriage creates a permanent bond between the Empire and the human race." The crowd murmured. Not everyone was happy about this. "Bring forth the princess," the Emperor commanded. Heard a door open somewhere to his left. Footsteps approached, slow and measured. The crowd gasped. "She is completely covered," someone whispered nearby. "Even her face." "How strange," another voice said. "Why would she hide on her wedding day?" Listened carefully. The princess stopped a few feet away from him. He could smell her perfume and hear her breathing. Her breath was shaky. She was trembling. "Princess," the Emperor said. There was tension in his voice. "You may remove your veil." "Silence," the Emperor repeated. His voice was harder now. "Father," the princess said quietly, "I prefer to keep it on." The crowd erupted in whispers. This was clearly not normal. On wedding days, the bride was supposed to display her full bioluminescence. It was a show of beauty and status. Hiding behind a veil was an insult to tradition. "You will remove the veil," the Emperor said. Each word was heavy with command. Felt the princess's fear like a physical wave. Whatever she was hiding, she was terrified of revealing it. Without thinking, he spoke. "Your Majesty," he said, "I have a request." The hall fell silent. The Emperor's attention shifted to him. "You dare to speak during the ceremony?" the Emperor asked. "I mean no disrespect," said, "but on Earth there is another custom." He heard the Emperor make a sound of impatience, but continued before he could be interrupted. "In my culture, a husband does not see his bride's face until they are alone together for the first time. It is considered romantic. The first look is private, shared only between husband and wife." The lie was bigger this time, more dangerous. The Emperor was not stupid, he might see through it. But before the Emperor could respond, someone else spoke, an older female voice from the crowd. "The human custom is charming," the voice said. "Perhaps we should respect it. After all, this is a union between two cultures. We should honor both traditions." Did not know who had spoken, but he was grateful. The crowd murmured in agreement. Even the Emperor seemed to hesitate. "Very well," the Emperor said finally. There was suspicion in his voice, but also resignation. "The princess may keep her veil until after the ceremony, but this human better not be making fools of us." The ceremony continued. A priest spoke words in old language that did not understand. Servants brought forward cups filled with liquid that burned his throat when he drank it. Chains of light metal were wrapped around his wrists and connected to the princess's wrists, symbolizing their bond. Through it all, the princess remained silent. Her hands trembled when they touched his. Her breathing never calmed. What was she so afraid of? Finally, the priest spoke the final words. "The bond is complete," he announced. "Human and princess are now joined. May their union bring peace between our peoples." The crowd cheered, though the sound was mixed with less pleasant noises. Not everyone was celebrating. "You may take your wife to your chambers," the Emperor said too. "The traditional wedding night begins now. In the morning, you will present yourselves to the court as a married couple." Guards led them out of the ceremony hall. The princess walked beside, still connected to him by the metal chains. She did not speak. They walked through long hallways, away from the crowd and the noise. The air grew cooler and quieter. Finally, they stopped at a large door. "Your chambers," a guard said. You will not be disturbed until morning." The door opened, and the princess walked inside. The door closed behind them, and they were alone. The room was silent except for their breathing. Could smell flowers and clean fabric. He could feel warmth from a fire burning somewhere nearby. "You can remove the veil now," he said gently. "We are alone." The princess did not move. "I know you are afraid," continued. "I have heard it in your breathing since the ceremony began, but I promised you before that I would not hurt you. Whatever you are hiding, I will not judge you." "You will," she whispered, her voice cracked. "Everyone does." "I cannot see," reminded her. "Your appearance means nothing to me. I know you only by your voice and your scent and the sound of your footsteps. Those things tell me you are gentle and kind and frightened. Nothing you reveal will change that." The princess was quiet for a long moment. Then he heard fabric moving. She was removing the veil. "There," she said, her voice was thick with emotion. "Now you know." Was confused. "Know what? I cannot see you." "Exactly," she said. "You cannot see that I have no glow." The words hung in the air between them. Did not understand at first. "No glow," he repeated. "My bioluminescence," she said. "It never developed. Since birth my skin has been dark. Among my people this is the greatest shame. A without glow is considered defective, broken, worthless." Her voice broke on the last word. "My father kept me hidden for years," she continued. "He told the people I was sick, then that I was studying, then that I was simply private. The truth is that he was ashamed of me, a princess without light, an embarrassment to the royal family." Began to understand. "That is why you chose me," he said slowly. "A blind human would not care about your glow." "Yes," she admitted. "When I saw the recordings of you saving your soldiers, I thought you might be different. I thought you might accept me as I am. But now that we are married, I realize how selfish that was. I have trapped you in this with me." She started to cry. The sound was soft and broken, like a bird with injured wings. Reached out slowly. He found her hand and held it gently. "Listen to me," he said. "You did not trap me. I came here expecting nothing. No happiness, no future, just duty and survival. But you have given me something I did not expect." "What?" she asked through her tears. "Hope," he said. "You are not broken, you are simply different. And different is not the same as worthless. I know this because I am different too. My people see blindness as a weakness, a tragedy, but it is just another way of experiencing the world." He squeezed her hand. "On my planet there are creatures that live in deep caves where no light reaches. They have no eyes because they do not need them. They navigate by sound and touch and smell. Are they broken? No. They are perfectly suited for their world." The princess's crying slowly quieted. "You and I," continued, "we are like those creatures. We do not fit the worlds we were born into, but together we can create our own world. A world where glow and sight do not matter. A world where we judge each other only by our actions and our hearts." For a long moment there was only silence. Then the princess laughed. It was a small, wet sound, still mixed with tears, but it was also the most beautiful thing had ever heard. "You really are strange," she said. "No one would ever speak this way." "I am not," said simply. "I am human, and humans are very strange indeed." She laughed again, stronger this time. Outside their chambers, the court celebrated a political marriage. They did not know what had really happened. They did not know that two broken souls had found each other in the darkness. And they did not know that this marriage would change everything. That night, and talked until the small hours of the morning. She told him about her childhood, about growing up in the palace, hidden from public view, about the doctors who tried to cure her darkness and the priests who said she was cursed, about her mother, who died when was young, and her father, who could barely look at her without disappointment in his eyes. "I used to pray for glow," she said. "Every night I would beg the gods to light up my skin. I thought if I just wished hard enough it would happen, but it never did." Listened without interrupting. He understood that she needed to share these things. She had carried them alone for too long. "When the war with Earth ended," continued, "my father saw an opportunity. He could finally be rid of me. He announced that I would marry a human as a symbol of peace. He pretended it was a great honor, but we both knew the truth. He was throwing me away." "Why did you agree?" asked. "Because I was tired," she said. Her voice was heavy with exhaustion. "Tired of hiding, tired of pretending, tired of being a disappointment. I thought that if I left, maybe I could start a new life. Maybe I could be someone other than the Dark Princess." She laughed bitterly. "But then I realized I would just be trading one prison for another. A blind human husband on an alien world. What kind of life is that?" Was quiet for a moment, then he spoke. "When I lost my eyes," he said, "I wanted to die. I lay in that hospital and wished for death every single day. The darkness was so complete, I could not imagine living in it forever. Listened. But slowly, I learned to see again, not with my eyes but with my other senses. I learned to hear the shape of rooms. I learned to smell danger before it arrived. I learned to feel the emotions of people around me through the tiny changes in their voices." He reached out and touched her arm gently. "The darkness is not empty," he said. "It is full of things that people with sight never notice. Beautiful things, important things. You just have to learn how to find them." Was silent for a long time. "How do you do it?" she finally asked. "How do you stay hopeful after everything you have lost?" "I focus on what I still have," said. "I can hear the wind. I can feel the sun on my skin. I can taste good food and smell flowers. I can talk to people and learn their stories. These things are not small. They are the foundation of a good life." He paused. "And now I have you," he added. "A wife who chose me because I am blind. Not despite my blindness, but because of it. That is a gift I never expected." Made a soft sound. He could not tell if it was a laugh or a sob. "We are quite a pair," she said. "The blind human and the dark princess." "The best stories are about unusual pairs," said. "Perhaps our story will be worth telling." They fell asleep as the first light of morning touched the sky. They did not touch beyond holding hands. That would come later if it came at all. For now, it was enough to simply be together. The morning brought new challenges. According to tradition, the newlywed couple had to present themselves to the court. This was normally a celebration, where the bride displayed her full glow and the groom showed off his new wife's beauty, but had no glow to display. "What will we do?" she asked. Her voice was tight with fear. "Had been thinking about this all night." "We will tell a different story," he said. He called for the servants and made several unusual requests. They looked at him strangely but obeyed. He was the princess's husband now. He had some authority. An hour later, they walked into the great hall. The court was packed with nobles. They had come to see the Dark Princess and her human husband. They had come to mock and judge and gossip. Walked beside. He had asked her to wear a dress made of special fabric that seemed to glow with its own inner light. It was not bioluminescence, but artificial lights woven into the cloth. From a distance, it might look similar. He had also asked her to walk close to him, so close that their bodies almost touched. And he had asked her to speak with confidence, no matter how scared she felt. "The human and his wife," a herald announced. The room fell silent, everyone stared. Heard the whispers begin immediately. "Her glow is so dim. Is that even real light? How pathetic, a princess reduced to tricks. But had prepared for this too. Your Majesty," he said loudly, addressing Emperor, "I thank you for this opportunity to address your court." The Emperor made a sound of surprise. Humans were not supposed to speak without permission. But before he could object, continued. "I know that many of you are wondering about my wife's appearance. I wish to explain." The whispers grew louder. The court was curious now. "On Earth," said, "we have a saying. The lights cast the darkest shadows. We believe that true beauty is not about outward appearance but about inner character." He turned toward, even though he could not see her. "My wife is the most beautiful person I have ever known, not because of how she looks but because of who she is. She is kind and intelligent and brave. She chose to marry a blind human from a species your people consider primitive. That took courage." The hall was completely silent now. "I have been blind for 2 years," continued. "In that time, I have learned that sight is not the same as understanding. Many people with perfect eyes cannot see what truly matters. They judge others by surface things like appearance and status. They miss the deeper truths." He paused. "Princess does not glow like other. This is true. But I would argue that her lack of glow is a gift, not a curse. It forces others to see her as she truly is. It strips away the distraction of appearance and reveals her true character." He turned back to face the emperor. "I am honored to be her husband," he said, "and I hope that someday your people will see her the way I do, not as someone who lacks something, but as someone who has something special that others do not." The silence stretched on, could feel the weight of hundreds of stares. He had either just saved them or destroyed them. There was no middle ground. Then someone started clapping. It was a slow, quiet clap at first, but it grew louder. More people joined in. Soon the entire hall was filled with applause. Did not understand what was happening. He heard gasp beside him. "They are standing," she whispered. "They are all standing for us." It was not total acceptance. Could still hear whispers of disapproval from some parts of the room, but it was more than they had hoped for. The emperor spoke. "Human," he said. His voice was strange, mixed with emotions could not identify. "You have surprised me. I did not expect such wisdom from your species." "Thank you, Your Majesty," said. "Perhaps," the emperor continued slowly, "we have underestimated humans. Perhaps there is more to your people than we believed." The words hung in the air. Coming from emperor, they were almost revolutionary. The presentation ended, and were escorted back to their chambers. The servants who walked with them were different now. Their voices were softer, more respectful. When they were finally alone, threw her arms around. "How did you do that?" she asked. Her voice was filled with wonder. "They were ready to mock us. Instead, they stood and applauded." "I told the truth," said simply. "Sometimes the truth is more powerful than any lie." "But the things you said about me, about humans, how did you know it would work?" Smiled. "I did not know," he admitted. "I hoped. That is all any of us can do." Pulled back, he heard her take a shaky breath. "No one has ever defended me like that," she said. "My whole life, people have either ignored me or me. You stood in front of my father's entire court and told them I was beautiful." "You are beautiful," said. "Your lack of glow does not change that." "You cannot even see me," she said. "No," he agreed, "but I can hear your voice. I can feel the kindness in your touch. I can smell your perfume and sense your presence. Those things paint a picture in my mind, and in that picture you are beautiful." Was quiet. When she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. "My mother used to say something similar. She said that true beauty comes from the heart. She was the only one who ever made me feel normal." "What happened to her?" asked gently. "She died when I was 12, a disease that even our medicine could not cure. After she was gone, I had no one." Took her hand. "Now you have me," he said. "I cannot replace your mother, but I can stand beside you. I can defend you. I can remind you of your worth when you forget." Squeezed his hand. "And I will be your eyes when you need them," she said. "I will describe the colors you cannot see. I will guide you through the darkness." Felt something warm spread through his chest. It had been a long time since he had felt anything like this. "Together," he said. Together, she agreed. Outside their chambers, the empire buzzed with talk of the strange human and his dark princess. Some spoke with contempt, but more spoke with curiosity, and a few spoke with something like admiration. Change was coming too, and it had started with two broken people who had found each other in the dark. 3 months passed, and settled into a routine. Each morning she would describe the sunrise to him in careful detail. The colors, the shapes of clouds, the way light moved across the palace walls. He would listen with his eyes closed, painting pictures in his mind. Each evening, he would teach her human games and songs. He showed her how to play cards by feeling the tiny bumps he had carved into each one. He taught her folk songs from his village, simple melodies about farmers and seasons and love. They were learning each other, day by day, hour by hour. "Tell me about your family," asked one evening. They were sitting in their chambers sharing a meal. The food was strange and spicy, but had grown to enjoy it. "My parents were farmers," he said. "Rice and vegetables. They worked from sunrise to sunset every day of their lives. They never complained." "Do you miss them?" "Every day," he admitted. "They died in the first attacks. Ships destroyed our village. I was away, fighting in another region. By the time I heard the news, there was nothing left." Was silent. He knew she was struggling with guilt. Her people had killed his family. "I do not blame you," he said. "War takes from everyone. Your people lost loved ones too." "How can you be so forgiving?" she asked. Thought about the question. "When I was young, my grandfather told me a story. There was a farmer whose neighbor's dog killed all his chickens. The farmer was furious. He wanted revenge, but his wife stopped him. She said that killing the dog would not bring back the chickens. It would only create more pain." He paused. The farmer listened to his wife. Instead of revenge, he built a stronger fence. He protected what he still had, and slowly, over time, he and his neighbor became friends again. Made a thoughtful sound. "I think," continued, "that forgiveness is not about forgetting. It is about choosing to move forward instead of backward. I cannot change what happened to my family, but I can choose how I respond. I choose to build fences, not graves." That night held his hand until they fell asleep. Word of speech had spread throughout the empire. People were talking about the strange human who had defended his dark princess. Some called him foolish, others called him brave, but everyone was curious. Requests began arriving at the palace. Nobles wanted to meet the human. Scholars wanted to study him. Even common people sent letters asking about Earth and its customs. Emperor was not pleased. He had expected his daughter's marriage to be a quiet embarrassment, hidden from public attention. Instead, it had become the most talked-about event in years. "You have created problems for me," the emperor said. He had summoned to his private chambers. They were alone except for guards at the door. "I apologize, Your Majesty," said. "That was not my intention." "No, what was your intention?" Considered his words carefully. "To protect my wife," he said, "nothing more." The emperor was silent for a moment, heard him stand and walk closer. "I have ruled this empire for 40 years, the emperor said. "In that time I have learned to read people, their intentions, their desires, their fears." He stopped directly in front of. "You are afraid," the emperor said, "but not of me. You are afraid for my daughter. You are afraid of what will happen to her after you are gone." Did not deny it. He had thought about this often. Humans lived shorter lives than one day he would die and would be alone again. "I want to make sure she is safe," admitted, "even after I am gone." The emperor made a sound that might have been surprise. "You truly care for her," he said. It was not a question. "Yes," said simply. "Why, she was a stranger to you, an alien, a princess from an empire that nearly destroyed your people. Why would you care?" Thought about everything he had learned about her gentleness, her intelligence, her courage in the face of rejection. Because she deserves to be cared for, he said. Every living being deserves that, but more than most. She has spent her entire life being told she is worthless. I want to spend my life showing her the opposite. The Emperor was quiet for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was different, softer, more human somehow. Her mother was the same way. Was surprised. The Emperor rarely spoke of his late wife. She saw the best in everyone, the Emperor continued. Even me, especially me. When my daughter was born without glow, I wanted to hide her away, to pretend she did not exist, but my wife refused. She loved completely, without reservation. He sighed. When she died, I lost that love. I became what I had always been underneath. Cold, practical, ashamed of anything that made me appear weak. Is not a weakness, said carefully. No, the Emperor agreed. She is not. I think I knew that all along, but it was easier to push her away than to face my own failures as a father. He walked back to his chair and sat down heavily. You have shown me something, human, something I did not want to see. My daughter needed someone to believe in her. I should have been that person. Instead, it took a blind alien from a primitive world. Earth is not primitive, said quietly. We are just different. The Emperor actually laughed. It was a short, rough sound, but genuine. Perhaps, he said, perhaps different is not the same as lesser. My advisors would say I am becoming soft, but I am too old to care about their opinions. He stood again. Human, I am going to do something I have never done before. I am going to apologize. Was stunned. I apologize for how I have treated you, the Emperor said. And I apologize for how I have treated my daughter. I cannot undo the past, but perhaps I can do better in the future. Your Majesty, said carefully, it is not me you should apologize to. I know, the Emperor said. I will speak to soon. But first, I wanted you to know that you have my respect. You have done more for my daughter in 3 months than I did in 20 years. That is a debt I cannot repay. The meeting ended. Returned to his chambers in a daze. He could barely believe what had just happened. When he told, she cried, but they were different tears than before. They were tears of hope. A week later, the Emperor made a public announcement. Princess would no longer hide. She would take an official role in the government. She would represent the Empire in diplomatic matters with Earth. The announcement caused an uproar. Many nobles protested. A princess without glow could not possibly represent dignity. But the Emperor was firm. My daughter has shown more courage than any of you, he said to the court. She faced your mockery with grace. She married a stranger from another world. She has proven that worth is not measured by appearance. He looked directly at. I was wrong about her, he said. I was wrong about many things. It took a blind human to open my eyes. The court fell silent. From this day forward, the Emperor continued, no will be judged by their glow. Worth will be measured by actions and character. This is my decree. The changes did not happen overnight. Old prejudices ran deep. But slowly things began to shift. Others without glow came forward sharing their stories. Support groups formed. Laws were changed. And at the center of it all were end. They became symbols of something new. Proof that difference was not the same as defect. Proof that outsiders could see things that insiders missed. One night, years later, and sat together in their garden. Their garden now. The Emperor had given it to them as a gift. Do you remember our first conversation? Asked. In the garden before our wedding. I remember, said. You asked why I helped you. And you said you heard my silence, that it sounded like someone who needed help. Yes. She leaned against him. Her body was warm and familiar now. I have been thinking about that answer, she said. About how you navigate the world, about how you find light in darkness. And what have you concluded? She was quiet for a moment. I concluded that you were right. The darkness is not empty. It is full of beautiful things. We just have to learn how to find them." She took his hand. "You found me," she said, "and I found you, two broken people who became whole together." Smiled, he lifted her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "Not broken," he said, "just different." Above them, the stars burned in colors could not see, but he did not need to see them. He had found his own kind of light, and it was more beautiful than anything the universe could offer. Far away on Earth, humans told stories about the blind soldier who had married an alien princess. They said he was a hero. They said he had changed an empire. But did not think of himself as a hero. He was just a man who had learned to see with his heart instead of his eyes. And in the end, that had made all the difference.